Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Missflips. In today's episode, we are going to be taking this we're going to be taking this drabby, kind of out-of-date glass cabinet and turning it into something refreshed, rejuvenated, and something that anyone can put into their home to add a little bit of a flair. And the technique that I'm going to be using to do that is frosted glass. If you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe and do all those things so that we can be a happy flippin' family. And yeah, let's get flippin'. Alright gang, so here is the piece that we're going to be working on in this episode. I was specifically looking for a piece like this because I wanted to try out using the frosted glass technique. I thought of this a couple weeks ago and I finally found this piece which was absolutely perfect for it. So we're going to get started. The first thing I did was I cleaned down this piece with vinegar and water solution, and this just really helps get all of the grime up out of the piece. And originally I had planned on doing like a bare wood design throughout the paint, but as I started working on the piece, I decided against that, so that is why I didn't sand it to begin with. So for the paint color, we're using Nirvana by Melange paint, and it is a beautiful kind of sea foam green kind of color. But yeah, it did a pretty good job sticking to the wood, even though I didn't sand it, although I would highly recommend sanding your pieces before going in there and painting them. It's just, you know, really cold outside and I'm having to do stuff inside, and also I figured since Melange paint has built-in primer into it, I would just kind of try it out and see if it works. And it did, it stuck pretty well, and I just made sure to put on some extra coats there to give it some nice coverage and make sure that it was really on there. But also, if you're gonna do this without sanding, please make sure to give your piece a good clean so that you are painting onto the piece itself and not to any dirt, grime, or grease that is on the surface of the piece. And if you guys have been watching my videos for a while, you will notice that I've been using Melange paint quite a bit recently. In my latest videos, it's pretty much all that I use, and the reason for that is because of the convenience of having an all-in-one paint, as well as the color palette that they have. I just really enjoy the colors of Melange paint, and I don't think that I have found any other brand of paint that has the color palette that they do at the price that they have it at. And also, they are mineral-based paints, and so it's, you know, even better for the environment. But if you are looking for a chalk paint that you would like to use, please go check out Wise Owl. I also really like the color palette that they have. They are a little bit more on the expensive side though, which is why I tend to go more towards Melange. But yeah, check out Wise Owl. Their color palette, their paint are both great, so highly recommend. So in between my coats, I made sure to go over it with a light scuff sandpaper, and I did have to take it into the freezing cold refrigerator that is my garage and sand it down so that I could get a smooth finish. And then I went in with a second and then a third coat of paint, and then finished off with putting some water into the paint and then doing a light, thin fourth coat on top of everything. And there is honestly no rhyme or reason for that. It doesn't, you know, do anything crazy as far as like protecting it or whatever, but it was just another layer of paint on there, and I was actually kind of running out of paint, so I couldn't do an entire fourth coat on the piece just with the paint that I had. So I just went in there with some water and thinned it out and just did a light coating on top of everything just to make sure that everything was fully covered. But before I did every coat on the outside of the piece, I decided to go in with my razor here and just clean up anything that was on the glass. There was some like wax on here, there was also some scotch tape, so I just made sure to do all of my cleaning and taping of the glass design that I was gonna be spraying over before I took it downstairs into the garage. So with this, you want to be really careful because your razor blade is obviously going to be really sharp, but you also want like the really sharp unused edge. So just use some extra caution there. But yeah, so this guy had a little bit of scotch tape and a little bit of wax on the surface. I have no idea why there was wax on the glass, maybe a candle spilled or something, but I just made sure to go in there with the edge of the blade. And as I'm showing you here, you want it to be flush up against the glass. You don't want to go in with like the tip of your blade like this because that can scratch the glass. You want to go from the side and make sure that the whole blade is flush. And then I went in with a wet paper towel and just wiped the whole thing down, make sure to get all of that wax residue off from the blade and just really clean it off so that when I sprayed it down with that frosted glass spray, it would be against the glass and not on something that was on the glass. And then to protect the sides of the piece, I just went in there with some tape and some old newspaper and ripped up the newspaper and covered up the edges so that I wouldn't get the spray on the piece itself. Yeah, good stuff. So as I started to tape, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do yet. So I started off with these little triangle designs, and then it ended up that I kind of just used these as my guides to line up the actual design. And so when I went in, these pieces of tape here just so happened to be the literal perfect thickness to fit in between the lines that were already on the glass. So I went ahead and taped in between the lines so that I would have like this gradual kind of like smallest to biggest line scheme into the middle of the glass. And then I went ahead and cut the excess tape that I didn't want to be there so that I would have nice clean edges. And again, you want to make sure you are working with the like sharpest side of the blade. Otherwise the tape is going to get pulled, dragged, and crinkle up, and it's not going to be clean at all. So you want your thing to be really sharp. So yeah, just cleaned up the edges, made sure that everything was slanted and as perfect as I can be, because with a spray, even if you're using spray paint, you can't go back really and like clean up your edges or, you know, add more here to this little tiny spot once you take up the paint or once you take up the tape. Because once you take up that tape, unless you want to perfectly align that tape again, you can't really respray. So you want your edges to be as clean as possible, which is why I'm being so meticulous with the razor blade. And then I even go back in and make sure that all of my edges are firmly pressed up against the glass, because again, with spray, you can't really go back. It's kind of like a one-shot thing. You have this shot and that's it. So you want it to be as perfect as possible. And so when it comes to spraying, you want to do this in an either well-ventilated room or outside. I tried it inside because, you know, it's glass spray. I figured that it was fine because it said it was safe to use on shower doors, windows, and all that sort of stuff. But it is absolutely pungent and very, very chemically forward and it's sent. So highly recommend taking it outside, wearing a respirator, and, you know, doing all the precautions that you usually do when you're working with spray. And then, yeah, just took off the tape once it dried, and that was kind of it. It was a super easy process. I did several coats, and you want to make sure to apply them really, really thin. Otherwise, you're going to get some runs, and that will ruin the whole look of the piece. You're going to end up having to do it all over again, scraping off all of the fog with either a razor blade or... Actually, I don't really know how else you would take it off, but yeah, so make sure you're doing really light coats and make sure you're doing or making sure that it's completely dry if you are doing more than one coat. While this piece was drying, I came into the garage and there was this light that was coming through the back of it that just absolutely made the piece light up, and it was beautiful. So instead of replacing this backing with a solid piece, I ended up just removing the entire thing and leaving it open just so it could get that light shining through, because honestly, it made the piece just pop and it was gorgeous. So I went in there with my drill gun and just took it off. And then this is that light, like watered down coat that I was telling you guys about earlier. And yeah, just put some water in there and got the whole surface covered with the fourth and final coat. I didn't like how the bottom part of this looked and how that middle shelf looked unpainted, so I went ahead and did a lot of coats. I kind of lost count because the paint was so watered down. I couldn't get very good coverage with the coats, so I just went in there and did as many coats as I needed to do to get full coverage. So yeah, just make sure that you're getting full coverage with your stuff. And as I was painting, I decided to actually go in there with this lighter blue. It's kind of like a light sky baby blue, and just do little accents here and there. So I did like the faces of the shelves. I also did the base and the top of the insides of the glass doors. And yeah, just kind of to add a little bit of dimension and like just accents. So yeah. And just for some added protection, I went in there with some sealing balm from Melange Paint and just went over this whole thing, and I just really made sure to rub it in there and get a nice thick coat on every surface of this piece. And I went in there with a lint-free cloth. Make sure you do this or else you're gonna get little fuzz balls in the finish, and they're pretty much impossible to get out once this is buffed and cured. So yeah, lint-free cloth, super important. Alright guys, so that is the finished product. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I know I loved trying out this technique. It was something that I thought would be really cool, so I am so happy that it actually worked. I had never tried it before, so it was kind of a toss-up, and it did pretty well. So I'm pumped, and I hope that you guys learned a little bit and can take this technique and apply it to something that you have either in your home or something that you're looking to flip for profit. But anyways, so numbers, I got this piece off of Facebook Marketplace for $40. I wouldn't normally spend $40 on a piece like this, but because I was looking for something specific to put the frosted glass design on, I kind of, you know, was willing to spend that extra change to get exactly what I was looking for, and this cabinet happened to be it. So I spent $40 on that. The frosted glass spray was $6, and then the melange paint was $20. I used probably about $15 of it because I did use it on this piece here as well, and then the rest of it I ended up using on this piece. And to seal the paint, I used Melange's quenching balm in their like hemp type of stuff. It's a sealing balm. I didn't really feel like I needed to put protective top coat on there because the paint that I used wasn't all-in-one paint, so it did have the primer and the top coat already inside of it, but you know, just put a little bit of that seal and wax on there to give it just like a little extra protection. But anyways, the balm is also $20, but I probably only used like maybe $1 of it. So all in all, I spent about $65 on this piece total from start to finish. And I think I'm gonna list it on Facebook Marketplace for $400 and see what I can get for it. If you guys wanna stay tuned and see how much I get for this piece, make sure to head on over to my Instagram where I have a highlight story of all of the sales that I've made and the profit that I have gotten from it. I'll make sure to include that link in the description below. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Stay flippin'. Mwah.